Hello, so we're here today with Ulisses Schlosser. He's a long-time Conscienciology researcher and he's going to be presenting a work at the Towards a Science of Consciousness event, which is going to be in Finland next month in June. Ulisses, tell us a little bit about your work. What's the basic idea of your work?
This work is about the paraphenomenological methodology. It's a methodology in Conscienciologia. It's an endeavor to try to help the foundations of Conscienciology, specifically in the problem about the psychic phenomena.
Ulisses, can you share with us the reason why you're proposing this methodology?
Well, nowadays we have problems in conventional science, and our problem now is how to research consciousness. So the psychic phenomenon is a core problem in the research of consciousness. So, how could we research psychic phenomena? The proposal of the methodology is to serve this point. If we think how this research was considered later, for instance, in the beginning of the 20th century.
Previously,
yes. In general, they use it to work with highly skilled people who could perform some phenomenal events, and this is very hard to find.
It's
and
quite rare.
Even when you find such a kind of people, those people, they don't know how to explain what they do. This kind of culture to describe and to detail procedures. This is the challenge of the paraphenomenological methodology. We think that we are only in the beginning of this trial. So this is the reason why we are proposing that. A way to start facing this challenge, to organize procedures, methods, techniques that anyone can perform, even a not skilled person, to work in experiments, in common experiments. So of course we need courage to start it. Let's see if those possibilities of consciousness really exist. In a specific way, it should be very interesting if we can offer a few group of principles that we can offer to any researcher in any university in the world, where they can, by themselves, to build protocols of experiments to research psychic phenomena.
Very important.
So this is the point. You see, we're not talking that we are going to develop those researchers. We're offering a method to any researcher in any place, so they can try to develop protocols. We are not talking about one kind of protocol, but we're talking about principles and foundations to develop different protocols. We have a proposal that we call it para-epistemology, or we should say the epistemology of paraphenomenology, the epistemology of the psychic phenomena. It's all similar. So we are now trying to find and to discuss which basis are those. So I know that you understand about this matter, but think about, feel yourself in the place of another researcher that he doesn't know anything about psychic phenomena, but he's interested about that. which are the foundations?
Where to begin? How
Yes.
can I begin studying this,
Yes.
researching this,
Yes.
investigating this
Yes, yes.
in a balanced way and in a way that isn't going to waste a lot of my time with dead ends and a lack of results?
Yes,
So this is one of the ideas that you have with presenting the work.
yes.
So Ulysses, in your work, the idea of the percept is really important. Can you explain to us a little bit about that idea?
Yes. This point about the parapercept is like a turning point in the philosophy of science. Because in the origins of science, René Descartes, he created a kind of proposition where the world we are able to observe is objective. And through this kind of objectiveness, it is possible to develop a kind of consideration about reality, that we can develop experiments and to get results in those experiments. But here we find a big problem to consciousness. Any kind of object that we observe, for instance, this pen. When I look at this pen, I see an image of this pen.
That's right.
This image, it is together with the object. My brain, my consciousness is unable to detach this image. And we should ask also if this image exists or not. What I see is the object or an image of the object. Where is the image? It is here or it's here. Where is the image of this object? It exists. Well, this kind of question, it seems not make sense in this situation, because I see an object and an image at the same time. Right?
That's it. That's right.
So there is no problem.
And then the problem you're
This is
going
the point of science. There is no problem to consciousness. This is very simple. The world is very simple. This is a one-dimensional world. So the way the brain works leads us to consider the world only in one way, one dimension of existence. Well, what is the parapercept? It's a kind of image that exists, detached from the object. So we are able to appreciate the image detached from the object. How does it work? When you experience a psychic phenomenon, for instance, clairvoyance, if you are able to appreciate the image, you are appreciating an image alone. So you should think, this image exists or not? The image. So around this problem, there are a lot of questions. Imagine that you observe an image alone. You should ask, where is the object? Where is this image? Inside my brain, inside my conscious, outside? Where is it? So there are a lot of questions, very challenging.
And this is one of the ideas.
And just one point. The exact point that if there is an image or not that our consciousness consider, this is very important. The existence of this real image, we are considering this as a foundation to a new kind of epistemology. If we consider this image as a real thing to study.
Is every image that a person perceives a real thing, in your opinion? Or is it things like imagination can play a role and create images that are not based on a reality, whether it be physical or multidimensional in nature?
So, now you arrive to a new point. Sure, if we investigate in this way, if we investigate the mental images, we may find different kind of images. I were talking about a kind of image which comes from reality, that is able to represent reality, and it's not result from my imagination.
All right.
But there's another kind of image that we can experience that results from my imagination. So we should consider two kinds of image, from imagination and another from perception.
And
This one from perception, we call it percept or parapercept when we consider the psychic phenomenon. And the other kind of image which comes from my imagination, we could call it imago.
Okay. And I see you provide a way to help people distinguish between one and the other, and a kind of re-verification process within your work.
Of course. When I use specific procedures, and that's what the methodology is about. When we use specific procedures to act over those images, we can observe the different reactions from those kind of images. For instance, if I asked you to imagine melon, a yellow melon,
Okay.
and if you try to make exercises over that image, you will have a few results. But if you were able to develop other procedures, and suddenly another kind of images appears to your consciousness, and you try to develop actions over that image. For instance, if you are here inside this room, and you are able to observe an image of an object that is in the other room, and if you use your energies, if you begin to use the possibility of this coincidence between the physical body and the psychosoma, you can start to perceive, to use your perception in another way, and that image is possible to become clear, and you can observe it, and you can also use those experiments. Well, this kind of experiment, it's famous. There are a lot of kind of experiences like that, and we should say that it's the clairvoyance,
Clairvoyance, that's exactly right.
Remote
viewing is another form
remote
of this kind of
Yes, this is
experiment.
a very good example how our consciousness resources could act over the parapercept.
Ulisses, one of the major points of your work is to present a methodology, a paraphenomenological methodology. Can you explain that to us briefly?
The paraphenomenological methodology is a proposal to organize procedures that we could develop and research that psychic phenomena. So that's the question. How we could think that a person could develop a psychic phenomenon. What is that? At first, if you want to consider this problem in a serious way, in a scientific way, you need to build a personal attitude about that. Not a kind of attitude when you use beliefs or jokes.
So you have an open mind kind of thing, and
Yes,
and take
it is
seriously.
important. An open mind, and to use scientific premises. Premises. Observation, experimentation, verification, re-verification, hypothesis,
Okay.
in such a way. Another point, when you say open mind, that's not only that. It's very important that you are open to perception, to admit your own perceptions. We should say perceptive attitude about that. And another point is the ethics. In Conscienciology, we use a conception of cosmoethics, a kind of ethics that you can use in a universal way, in any situation. So this whole group together, this creates a new approach in the attitude of the researcher. This is the first point. Well, the second point is to prepare your mind to learn to reduce the production of mental images from imagination. If you are full of imaginations, it will be very difficult to receive new perceptions.
So it's kind of like if you're overloaded, there's no space for a calm and clear perception.
Yes, it's very important to learn to keep your mind calm. This is the second point. The third point, you should be prepared to something new that could appear to your mind. It could be a mental image, like a vision,
like a landscape or an object,
things
or
like
a
that.
person.
But not only that, sensations,
Okay.
any kind of sensations. When we say mental images, we are not talking only about visual images. There are many kinds of mental images.
Could it also be an emotional reaction that could be perceived?
Yes, but images from energies, from the sensation of energy, it creates a specific kind of mental image. The smell, the sounds you hear, all that phenomena are kinds of mental images. We should say auditive images. You see, this is not a visual image.
It's important to emphasize.
So when you have the sensation of energy, you don't see the energy, you have the sensation. And this sensation creates a kind of mental images that you register in your memory. So when all those images come to your consciousness, they appear to you suddenly. So this is the third stage, the activation of the mental image. It appears to consciousness. The fourth stage of the methodology, it's a kind of re-education. When the person learns to deactivate stimulus, deep stimulus, which could interfere in the physiology of the parapercepts, of the images from reality. If you are receiving images from reality and you are creating interferences in those images, so you are doing a kind of contamination.
A distortion of...
Yes, a distortion. So it's very important to educate deeply consciousness, to learn to receive perceptions. And the next point, the fifth stage, is what we call the tuning of the parapercept. This is
tuning?
The tuning of the paraperception. This is the core procedure. Well, imagine that suddenly you see an image that seems very strange to you, and it disappears. And you observe that image only for a few seconds, and you don't know what to do to observe that image for a
longer
time.
duration.
You don't know what to do. So the methodology is dedicated to that. What to do to observe an image and to make the psychic phenomenon lasting and clearer also. here we have many points. I'll talk about those points in a fast way.
Okay.
At first, you should know to adjust your lucidity, your attention. Second, it's very important to have a notion about the discoincidence of the psychosoma. The psychosoma is our extraphysical body, and through this extraphysical body is
we liberate our ability to perceive.
Yes, the ability to perceive comes from the extraphysical body.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very important point, and we call this point the theory of the objective body. So there is an objective body, that we call it extraphysical body, which perceives the extraphysical reality. If we are able to detach a little bit the extraphysical body from the physical body, in this point, the extrasensorial perception begins. This is maybe one of the main points. Mm-hmm. So if I am able to adjust this detachment, so I am able to control a part of the perception.
The flow of the inputs for the consciousness to perceive.
Yes. So I need to learn how to relax and promote the detachment.
Mm-hmm.
This coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Another point is to control the exteriorizations.
Exteriorization.
Exteriorization.
You did well. You just go with what you did.
Of the energies, because this when we put our energies outside,
mm-hmm.
we are able to tune.
Mm-hmm.
To tune, right?
To tune in to
with other objects, extra-physical objects.
Into like a deeper rapport.
Yes.
With the object.
We could call it tuning.
An assimilation. We can assimilate more from the...
Yes.
It's a tuning.
In Portuguese, we use the word sintonização.
Uh-huh.
In English?
Tuning.
Tuning. So if we are able to feel the kind of energy, the intensity, the density, so we can choose which object, which dimension we should tune.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is very important.
Tune into.
Yes. Another point is to use the special abilities of our para-brain, beyond the physical brain. Well, this should be a more complex maneuver, procedure, but it's not difficult to develop. If you are able to relax and feel your capacity of thinking and to execute procedures, mental procedures, in the state of relaxation, you will discover by your own self that you can operate from your para-brain. We call it para-brain because it is the brain you use when you are outside of the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
So using the para-brain is very important to operate the para-perception, the perception of the psychical phenomena.
Makes sense.
You see? So far, we talked about a few procedures
mm-hmm.
That you use for tuning the para-percept. This is the core general procedure.
Regarding the methodology.
Now think about it. How to explain that to people in general? Those procedures are possible to be learned, to be taught in schools. Well, our proposal is to develop protocols where people should experiment those skills in a systematic way and to experiment those perceptions. This is the core, this is the main proposal of the methodology. to understand our manifestation through this kind of approach is very different. Because
Sure.
with lucidity, we can develop actions without the human body and experience those actions. So the nature of the psychic phenomena depends on this kind of experience beyond the human body.
That's right.
And this goes on, other questions emerge. For instance, the manifestation in other dimensions. Not only 1, 2, or 3 dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how many dimensions. So we use the expression multidimensionality. And maybe the most challenging point of view is to consider that we have many existences. So if I or any researcher could leave
Leave their body.
the body, and outside of the body meet other consciousness, who now doesn't use the physical body like her grandfather or grandmother, we should think that those people who live outside the body have past existences.
So there's this continuity in the
Yes.
existence of the consciousness.
Yes.
So it seems
So
that consciousness doesn't die.
Yes, all that together is a new paradigm.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting part of the paradigm is that, of course, there's theories involved, but one of the main principles we talk about is the principle of disbelief. So not to believe anything, but to have your own experiences. So to apply techniques, for example, to leave the body, to have your own out-of-body experiences.
Yes.
And see for yourself these things. Because one thing is theory, and the other thing is actually applying that theory, which as a consciousness, it's inevitable and unavoidable for us to do. But in terms of researching this, your idea is to present a framework so people can actually, researchers, independent researchers or otherwise, can study this phenomena and expand humanity's level of knowledge about paraphenomena.